What's up, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jamie Rea, and I am a spiritual teacher. So I want to make this video about the differences between a spiritual initiation and a spiritual awakening, because they're vastly different things. So first off, I'm just going to say that a spiritual awakening is very mind-based. It's kind of a slight alteration in your thinking, the way that you sort of perceive the world, the way you sort of look at things. It's like a slight shift, right? Whereas a spiritual initiation is a full, embodied, physical initiation by God. So a spiritual awakening is very much in the mind. It's in the sort of lenses of how we view and perceive reality, our surroundings, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Whereas an initiation is a very physical process. An initiation usually comes by way of an illness or an injury, right? So illness and injury are really, really common because it brings us to a dead stop, right? It brings us to a dead stop where we have to really, really feel something all the way. And so illness and injury, and illness because illness and pain, physical pain, are one of the most common ways that we access other realms and dimensions. When you have physical pain and illness, it's one of the most common ways that you access other dimensions. So often when we're going down a spiritual path, we go through this initiation, illness or injury. You know, we have to get surgery on our knee, and we're all of a sudden we're in all this pain, and our body starts to access a lot of this ancestral energy, right? And so an initiation is very much we're accessing the quantum realm or the ancestral realm through injury or illness. Not always through those things, but often. It's a very physical process, right? An awakening is a very mind-based. And oftentimes we have several, one or two spiritual awakenings that precede an initiation. So think of like a spiritual awakening as kind of the adolescence of spirituality, where an initiation is the full-blown manhood or womanhood of a spiritual journey, right? So we go through like an awakening where things change slightly. And think of an awakening, it's not everything in your life changes. You maybe look at things a little bit different. Maybe your friendships shift a little bit. But in a spiritual awakening, it's only a slight shift, right? It's not this full-blown massive shift in your life, right? It's usually some small shift where the wheels kind of get turning in a little way, but oftentimes we're still holding on to a lot of fear. We're still holding on to a lot of fear. So we're not able to fully transform and shift our life completely. So we go through a few awakenings, some things change, but we're still holding on to a lot of fear. An initiation is when we're totally anointed by God. We don't have a choice. We're being brought through this process where nothing is ever going to be the same after this experience or process. It is straight divine intervention, right? And oftentimes what happens is we go through a bunch of spiritual awakenings, but we don't fully listen. Oftentimes probably because we're not ready to fully listen or fully take action in certain ways because we're still holding on to a lot of fear, right? So we go through a bunch of different awakenings, some things change, some things shift, but we still don't quite move onto the God path. Then the spiritual initiation comes along. It's God shaking us by our shirt and saying, you have to change your life, motherfucker. You have to change your life completely. And so illness, injury, it's basically gotten to the point where we haven't been listening. We haven't been listening enough. The initiation comes, and now everything in our life is going to change. Everything in our life is going to change. We go through an initiation and we try to move back into the old ways of doing things, the old patterns, and we realize we can't do that anymore. We are literally having to birth a brand new human being. Initiation is very much when Jesus was reborn, when he died on the cross for our sins, and then he became reborn. That's like an initiation. The identities that we've held on to, they're all dying. Every single part of us, it's dying. Initiation, we're experiencing a complete embodied nervous system death. So it's almost like an NDE, an initiation, a near-death experience, because what's happening is the stakes in the nervous system, the survival fear in the system, what we're experiencing somatically, physically in our body at a nervous system level is literally a death experience. We're having to die. We're having to kill all hope. And awakening is very mind-based. It's like a slight alteration, and it's like we see things a little bit differently, curiosity is forming in different directions, but it's not a full shift. And also spiritual awakenings are very mind-based. They're very our way of thinking. Whereas an initiation is you're having to recreate yourself at a literal cellular level in the body. That's why so often initiation is more based around illness or injury. It's a very physical process where a lot of ancestral symptoms are going to begin arriving in the body. So in initiation, you're working in other dimensions. You're working in other lifetimes. Spiritual awakening is very much just you in this life. It's very much like a fetus of spirituality. Initiation is the magnum opus. And a spiritual initiation is when you read a book of a New York Times bestselling spiritual teacher who discovered something, had these conversations with God. That's an initiation. Everything changed. They fully were anointed by God. When I went through my initiation, I had compressed discs all up and down my spine. I was in the hospital. I could barely walk for 8 months. I had crazy pain, nerve pain all through my body, and I didn't sleep for 4 months. And I started to access these other realms and dimensions, and things were showing up physically in my body. And I purged grief fully through my body every single day for 3 years. That's an initiation. I had several spiritual awakenings that led up to this point. Different things where I'm like, whoa, like I'm looking at things a little bit differently. And there were many sort of shades and blankets and fabrics of this spiritual awakening that I went through until this initiation come where I was like, fuck God. And like, I'm just going to go back to doing film, comedy, which is what I was doing before being a spiritual teacher. And then God just jumped on my dick and it's like, Jamie, you don't have a fucking choice. You don't have a choice. And I was called by God very reluctantly. I played hard to get. I'm like, God, don't fucking touch me. God's like, Jamie, I'm going to jump on your dick because it's time for you to step into your power. And everything shifted. And it's like, when you go through a spiritual initiation, it's like every single way that you had done things in the past is now going to change. Your whole entire life is going to change at a cellular level. It's very ancestral based. When you go through a spiritual initiation, again, physical pain and illness, something is changing at a cellular level in your body. You're accessing other realms, other dimensions, other lifetimes in the flesh, in your system, from the ancestral realm. And so that's why when you go through an initiation, there's often not a lot of memories of things that happened. You're dealing with so much ancestral energy, so much ancestral trauma. There's not a lot of memories. And so you're accessing a lot of energy that you have no context for. And you're doing this through the avenues of physical pain and illness. And awakening is oftentimes, it might not even be anything that happened to you. It might just be you did ayahuasca and you had sort of this download and this change, or maybe you went through a bad breakup or a divorce, or you lost a bunch of money, or you got betrayed by someone who thought was your best friend. Those sort of things, right? It's very emotional. It's very real. It's really, really true. But it's very in the mind. It's not in the physical body, not nearly to the degree that initiation is. So a spiritual awakening is a slight shift or a big shift, but an initiation is a complete altering of your cellular flesh and your body tissue, that you are rearranging the frequency and vibration that your body lives at. So in initiation, you're trying to move into like a God realm where you're trying to be able to embody God within you, which you get to when you purge enough ancestral energy through your body. You clear enough ancestral trauma and energy through your body. Then you raise your sort of vibration and move into this embodiment of holy God frequency in yourself. But it takes many spiritual awakenings, these slight shifts in consciousness, bad breakups, difficult emotions coming up, difficult experiences coming up, to inspire curiosity, right? We're like, oh, that's interesting. But then there's still a lot of fear holding. So we're like, I know my potential is this. I have these spiritual gifts, these spiritual powers, but I still have so much fear holding in the body, so much fear that I'm holding on to. Initiation's like God is telling you it is time. You don't have a choice. Every single ounce of fear that you're holding on to has to go. And it basically means when you go through initiation is that you have created the stakes and the circumstances in your energetic and physical body that you are now ready to release all this ancestral fear to step into your God's dharma or your God's purpose. And now you have to move into a new embodiment of the frequency in your body to align with that purpose that you're now going to create. Again, the spiritual awakening is kind of like a finger in the puss, right? Spiritual awakening is kind of like a finger in the pussy. You're kind of like fingering spirituality, but initiation is like you're fucking God and getting fucked by God completely. You get blasted. You get blasted and you don't have a choice. So spiritual awakenings and spiritual initiations are completely different things, but you need to go through a bunch of spiritual awakenings to get to the initiation. There are so many people in this industry who talk about what really is actually a spiritual awakening as this God's divinity and dharma. It's not even close. That's like kind of like you've like put one little toe into the ocean of God. Initiation is you dive headfirst into the cold plunge where you're freezing and God just succumbs all around you. A very physical process, illness and injury. And awakenings are they're very mind-based. So when people talk about their experiences of spiritual initiation, but it feels very mind-based, it's not a very massive physical process. It's far more likely that was an awakening, not an initiation. Initiation is when you become a spiritual warrior. You become a spiritual warrior through meeting an edge in your nervous system, an NDE, a near-death experience where you basically have to die. Everything, all the identities that you've carried, everything dies in your body and system, and you become reborn as truth, as divinity, as innocence, as the deliverance of the divine you. You know, you literally re-remember your divinity, the purity of your being, the innocence, who you've always been, but you've never been able to be. Your body re-remembers. And that death, that purging of all the identities is the process that brings us to our godly power and the truth. We re-remember it, right? And so, yeah, so many people in this industry are talking about initiations or, you know, that they're stepping into the divine feminine, the divine masculine, but they're really talking about a spiritual awakening. It's a very mind-based thing. It's not in the body, right? And so initiation is in the body and awakening is in the mind. Oftentimes we go through many spiritual awakenings before we move in the initiation. A lot of people actually don't even move into an initiation. They kind of stay in the awakening phase. And that just means, for whatever reason, this iteration of their soul in this lifetime, they're not called to an initiation. Initiation is when you literally become the embodiment of God in you. And you have to clear so much ancestral energy to get there. And depends what your soul's path is. Our souls all have paths and we all have missions that we're here to create in this iteration of Earth. And not all of us are meant to go through an initiation for our soul's incarnation for this lifetime and maybe we don't have to go through that initiation to do what we're here to do, right? So not everyone goes through it, but initiations are where you become so fucking potent and you're in the space and you can feel that person is completely tapped into God and they have an experience that they had to go through where they had to become a spiritual warrior. People go through spiritual awakenings are not spiritual warriors. They may be good at marketing. They may be like to sell. I went to this bad breakup and I had this, you know, revelation. I did ayahuasca in Peru and all these sort of things, but you can't feel them. You're like, this doesn't really feel embodied or integrated. Again, an initiation is total embodied spirituality. Spiritual awakening is very much in the mind. It's emotional in the mind. It's not a physical reincarnation. Awakening is very much in the mind. Initiation is very, very much in the body. So that's a little bit about the differences between spiritual initiations and spiritual awakenings. I definitely will be talking more about these specific topics as well as many other spiritual topics in the near future. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video. Please be sure to give this video a like, to subscribe, and send it to your friends and you know, post in the comment section and follow along. And I really appreciate you guys being here and watching this video, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.